We are going to go ahead and get underway. And just want to say hello and welcome and congrats once again. This is our Life After Hamilton, our Young Alumni Career Panel. And my name is John McLaughlin. I'm the Dean of Admission here at Hamilton. And I want to take every moment of opportunity that I have to say congratulations and welcome to the class of 2028. I've had the opportunity to connect with some of you virtually already. I've had the opportunity to connect with some of you in person already, which is really exciting. And I hope that you'll be attending some of our other virtual events and maybe even joining us on campus for our Celebrate Thyself days coming up a little bit later in April. I hope that over the course of the last couple of weeks and maybe even the last couple of months for our early decision and QuestBridge students, you've been thinking about what life might be like for you here at Hamilton. And tonight we want to spend a little bit of time thinking about what comes after Hamilton. And we hope that through these conversations and through this process, you can see your present and your future here. I'm zooming in from a beautiful Clinton, New York. It's 70 degrees and sunny, absolutely gorgeous. And we just also celebrated Eclipse Day up here. So it's a really exciting time to be on campus and to be at Hamilton and to think about welcoming you and all that will be in front of you as well. I'm going to be your MC for this evening, and I'm lucky to be joined by four incredible members of the Hamilton family, including Melissa Marietta, our Executive Director for Career Development, and three recent alumni, Taryn Pastor, Mason Schroeder, and Jafar Sharapov. I have a few questions for this group and some that you submitted in advance, but I also want to call your attention to the Q&A feature, which you'll see at the bottom of your Zoom screen, where you can submit your own questions. We want to hear from you. We're going to begin with some basic introductions. And for my panelists, I'm going to ask you to start by introducing yourself and talk a little bit about what you do. For the alumni in particular, maybe you can share a little bit more about the hometown, what your major was, what you're currently doing, and what you may be about to be doing, and anything else that you'd like to share. But up first, Melissa, I'm going to start with you.
Hi, everyone. John, it's such a pleasure to be here tonight, and I'm so excited to have the chance to speak with all of you. I'm Melissa Marietta. I'm the Executive Director in the Career Center. I've been at Hamilton for 3 years, and in addition to overseeing the entire Career Center, I'm also a dedicated career advisor. And so don't tell anybody else, but that's my favorite part of my job. And I really love working with admission and partnering with them, because I really enjoy talking with prospective students and their families, because you're all trying to make the decision about where you want to go to college. But at the end of those 4 years, what are you going to do after that? So I love talking with families and students in particular about the things that they can do at Hamilton so they can prepare themselves when they graduate.
Thanks, Melissa. We'll turn it over to our panelists. We'll start with Mason, then Taryn, then Jafar.
Hey everyone, I'm Mason. It's always fun to do these. I'm from Lexington, South Carolina. When I was at Hamilton, I was from South Dakota, so admissions loved that. I was a neuroscience major with a minor in medieval studies, and I was pre-med, so very busy schedule. At Hamilton, I was part of the Ultimate Frisbee team. At one point, I was the president of QuestBridge, multiple different gaming clubs, as well as being a member of the leadership team at the Career Center as a student, which was a lot of fun. And then currently I'm working as a restorative nursing assistant at the Dorn VA Hospital in Columbia, South Carolina, and will be starting medical school at the end of July at the University of South Carolina.
Awesome. Thanks, Mason. Taryn.
Hi, everyone. I'm Taryn. At Hamilton, I majored in neuroscience also, as well as Japanese. I am originally from Nashville, and that's where I currently am. And at Hamilton, I was also a part of QuestBridge, and I also worked at the Career Center. Mason and I track very closely to each other. However, I'm not going to medical school. I'm currently at Vanderbilt Law School instead. I'm just a 1L, but for the summer, I will be combining my neuroscience and Japanese skills, and I will be working at a patent law firm in Tokyo. So that is what I will be doing for the summer.
Super cool. First, I love these like major combinations. I think, when I talk to Hamilton people, it's amazing to kind of see the connections that they make. Thanks, Taryn. Jafar.
Yeah, happy to be here. My name is Jafar. I am from Tashkent, Uzbekistan. So I was an international student in Hamilton, where I majored in math and econ. After graduation, I moved to New York City to work at Deutsche Bank as an investment banking analyst, where I've been for the last 3 years, and just recently moved up in a role, and now I am an associate. So yeah, very fond memories of Hamilton, and so very happy to be here.
I want to thank you all again for joining us and giving us of your time and your experience, both of Hamilton and life after Hamilton. Melissa, thank you for your partnership and always working with us to share the amazing things that our Hamilton students do and the incredible outcomes that they have. I'm going to begin with a pretty straightforward question for our alumni, and again, I'll invite. If you're in the audience, if you have any questions, please use that Q&A feature. But I'm going to begin with a pretty straightforward question. So for each of our alums, tell us a little bit more about your current position. What's your day-to-day work look like? Feel free to jump in.
I can start. So my day normally starts by waking up way too early at 6 a.m. Because I have to be to work at 7. And then generally what I do is I help old people exercise. That's like the nuts and bolts of it. And it's really fun because I work exclusively with veterans, and I work with anywhere from a 97-year-old World War II veteran who is the sweetest man on the planet, to people who are in short-term stays in our facility who are there for only a couple weeks or a couple months rehabbing something. I work exclusively in an inpatient setting, which I really like too, just because I really get to know a lot of my patients, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, basically my job is I help old people exercise.
How about you, Taryn? You do the same thing?
We wake up around the same time. But instead I go into the law school and I get there around 7, and take a couple of classes and do what needs to be done at the law school. We have a lot of recruiting events, which is why I am in full suit attire. We are coming up on finals as well, so we're pretty busy right now. I stay in the law school pretty late currently, but this was not like this the whole semester. It is only a recent occurrence.
Right on.
And I'll talk about my job a little bit. So what I do basically, it involves advising companies raise capital or pursue certain strategic opportunities. Like think about a Fortune 500 company wanting to either merge or acquire another company. So that's where our bank gets involved, and we advise them through the process. And as you can probably imagine, these transactions all vary shape and detail. So each transaction is different. Therefore, like a lot of people will say the same thing, that I don't have a typical day. Is certain days I can waking up at 4 a.m. to hop on a call with Europe, and certain days I can come to the office like at 11 a.m. So it's really chaotic. But I would say on average, my day-to-day involves around like close collaboration with either clients or internal teams to tackle various work streams, be it financial modeling or facilitating due diligence in a given transaction, or helping prepare some company presentations or materials. So that's the gist of it. But as you can see, it's very dynamic, and I really don't have a typical day, but I try to sneak in an exercise in the mornings. That's very important to me. But the rest is very fluid.
It sounds like you're all keeping pretty busy. And I think it's, amazing to hear the work that you're doing in different spaces. I mean, one of the things that you obviously have in common, right, is that you're all Hamilton alums, and you're Hamilton alums who have ended up doing very different things. And I'm kind of curious, when you think back to your time at Hamilton and you think about what you're doing now, what you're about to do, how did your time at Hamilton prepare you for what you're doing now? Maybe we can start with Taryn and then Mason and then Jafar.
I'm so sorry, it cut out at the end. What was the question?
So thinking about, your time at Hamilton and what you're currently doing, how did your time at Hamilton prepare you for what you're doing now?
Oh yeah. Hamilton definitely was the right choice of school for me, especially due to the fact that I could take both a Japanese and a neuroscience major. If I did not do that combination, I don't think I would be where I am today. Sorry, it is motion activation. It's not turning back on. Come on.
It
Okay.
wouldn't be Zoom without a little bit of technical difficulty. It's all good. I got the same thing in my office, so I got to wave every now and again.
But because of the open curriculum, I was able to take both of these majors, and I was able to craft, and I'm currently crafting the type of job that I want to do inside of law as well. Prior to going into law, I didn't know exactly if I would be able to combine them, but law is very flexible, as I came to find out. So being able to combine neuroscience and Japanese was not impossible. It was very much attainable, as my summer experience can show. I would say that's how Hamilton has best prepped me for my future, is just like exposing me to as many interests as I wanted and deciding what interests to pursue afterwards and make a career out of it.
I love it. You mentioned the open curriculum. We got some questions coming in about that, so I'll come back to that at some point, but want to hear a little bit more from Jafar and Mason about how Hamilton's prepped you for your current role.
So since we're coming back to open curriculum, I won't touch too much on that, but it's a huge boon. I'm always talking to some of my
Mason, go for it.
I'm always talking to some of my coworkers who are like, wait, you didn't have to take all these gen eds? And I said, no, I just took what I wanted and it was great. Got a degree in basically a hobby and what I want to do for a career. So it's awesome. But I agree with everything Taryn said. I'm going to take a little bit different spin. I think the biggest way that it helped prepare me, at least how I am now, is with the ability to communicate. I had to communicate in a professional sense almost every day through working with the Career Center or emailing professors who are the top of their field in whatever they're doing, or working with admissions, and turning those professional relationships into ones that are more cordial, where you can just shoot somebody a text and be like, hey, can you help with this? I still have Melissa's phone number, and we were texting a couple months back just to catch up, which I think is really great. And you don't see that at all of these different places and institutions where a former student still stays in contact with a professional staff that they worked with. And I think that that's really helpful. It allows me to work closely with the doctors and nurses I work with every day, as also helps me just work with my patients and get to know them. So, and hopefully will help in medical school.
Jafar.
Yeah, I'll continue here. So it's definitely, there will be some overlap because there are certain themes that are present each of the stories. So I would say three main things I can think of. It's one, obviously was mentioned, open curriculum, fact that really helps you explore and encourages you to explore certain things that you would have normally taken anywhere else. So it helps with being intellectually curious, which is something going for more just because for the sake of it, not being afraid to try new things. Second one also was touched upon, but I would say is the writing intensive courses. So yes, Hamilton does have an open curriculum, but there are certain requirements, and each student has to have had at least, I believe it's 3 writing intensive classes over the course of your college career. So, and those have to be across different departments. So that really helped with your writing skills and your communication. Because like, especially in a job where I am at right now, it involves a lot of numbers and analytical and analytical pieces. But again, all these numbers are good for nothing if you're unable to present it correctly to the client or being able to communicate that. So it came in very handy being able to synthesize certain concepts and communicate that very succinct manner. I think that's been a huge advantage of being a Hamilton student. And the last one, I would say, it's very specific, but I definitely benefited from several math classes that were designed were for a lot of homework assignments. Those were 2 to 3 times a week. You have to submit proofs where you have to work with a partner. And that teaches you a lot and gives you a flavor of what it's like being, in a work environment, because you have to manage so many different things. Each one of you will have different schedules, whether you're an athlete or you're a different school or you're in different clubs. So you have to manage that, right? Different workload, travel schedule. So it's very different work styles. So all these things you have to manage. You need to know where to delegate, if you're having different answers, how do you communicate or argue about that in a respective manner? So, and this is something you face at work on a daily basis. So having that, as a freshman, definitely helped to know how to work alongside with people and be very collaborative.
I like some of what you're drawing out, Jafar, around like the lessons learned in terms of content, but also the meta lessons in terms of adulting and triaging and balancing priorities and trying to think about all the possibilities that are in front of you and planning accordingly. And I know, Melissa, you and your team play a role in helping people think through these different decision points and how to think about preparing themselves for a future after Hamilton. So I'd love to hear from you if you could talk a little bit more about how you and your team support our students in this process.
Sure. I don't think I got a chance to say what time I wake up. I wake up at 6 a.m. also, and it really makes me chuckle to think about these young alums that I knew as students and thinking about what time you would get up and what time you go to sleep and seeing you shift into that adulting piece. John, our model at Hamilton is to engage often and engage early. So every student has a dedicated career advisor. And what that means is that you're assigned to someone before you even start at Hamilton. And then we are with you through those 4 years. And we really get to know you. We want you to start having a conversation with us right in your first year, right in the fall. We start our programming. And it doesn't matter to us. If you have no idea what you want to do, then we're going to have a conversation with you about how do you explore that? How do you get to learn who you are? And how does that relate to the working world? And one thing that we might say is just go have a conversation with someone. We have an incredibly robust alumni network. And I've been at 3 different institutions, and Hamilton by far has the most supportive alumni who are willing to talk to students at any point in their career path. But we might have a student who says, I want to go to med school. Think about someone like Mason, right? Like, this is what my heart is set on. And we're going to say, all right, how do we want to get you there? What do you need to do to be prepared? What foundational tools do you need? What conversations do you need to have? What kind of grades do you have to have? Those are all the conversations that we're going to be having with students. So in addition to working with your career advisor on thinking about who you are as it relates to all the things you're doing, we have a curriculum, and so students can move through that curriculum. It's explore, communicate, and connect. So we help students develop their resumes, their cover letters. We just had a mock interview night tonight. That's what I was doing on campus before jumping on this call. And then, of course, we encourage students to explore through experiential learning. And so internships are a big part of the work that we do. So helping students look for internships, connect with employers, connect with alumni, and actually don't just look at a database and wait to see what internships are out there, but actually creating internships by having conversations. And then, of course, when it's time to graduate, We're there to help students, support them in thinking about graduate school, thinking about law school, med school, getting a job. But the great thing is that we've already had a discussion with every student before before they're even at that point in time. And so I think that that's what's so special about the model we have. And I just look at, I've known Taryn and Mason. Jafar, I didn't get to have the opportunity to know you as a student, but Taryn and I sat in my office and had a lot of conversation about what she wanted to do, and all kinds of ideas were on the table. She did a lot of different things to explore it. And when all of those pieces came together, we were able to reflect together, and however the Career Center could help support her in figuring out who to talk to and what to do. But ultimately, all of the students are such excellent communicators, analytical thinkers, that a lot of times the Career Center is just saying, here's all the pieces that you've put together. Go do it. It's really impressive.
One question that I have, Melissa, and thinking about, this is kind of a conversation that we've had before that I think our guests would appreciate. Thinking about sort of the scaffolding that your department does, recognizing that first year students may be kind of just beginning to think about this sort of process. Sophomores, juniors, seniors may all be approaching this in different ways. And I'm curious if you, and maybe if our alumni have any experiences about, moments or supports at different stages in their college life cycle that have helped them get to where they are. Melissa, if you want to get the ball rolling, and then
Sure, I'm sure each of them has the real story, but it's true. I think we don't want to push any career related conversations on a student before they're ready. But I think it's so important for students to just start thinking about who they are and what they want to do. And so we will have students after their first year who will do, we call it a career related experience, but it might be a mini internship. And one of the pivotal points I think about from so many students is that they'll come back in the fall semester and they'll say, I have to tell you something. I hated that experience and I didn't like it at all. And we'll say, that's actually really important. We're really glad that you learned that. You were thinking about this as a career path, and it turns out that it wasn't something that you wanted to do. Or they realize that they're really skilled at something that they didn't know that they wanted to do. Another really pivotal point is when students start doing networking, and that can be intimidating and scary. And we have conversations with students about, how do you talk to someone? And then a student will say, I had this conversation. It was great to talk to them, but I want an internship. Do I ask them for an internship? So we have that conversation. And I just had a student today who has a really wonderful offer for the summer for an internship. And it was because they had a conversation with an alum who connected them with someone who's at a vice president level at the organization. And they felt really confident about having that conversation. And in turn, then they offered them an internship position. So those are really pivotal moments I think about for students. But I am curious to hear from the alums what they think.
alums jump in. Reflecting on your time, what were some kind of pivotal moments or opportunities? Yeah, Taryn.
Yeah, for me, I started out wanting to go to med school, and it took a while for me to transition that I didn't want to do that. And when that transition happened, I was becoming a junior, and I didn't know what to do about it. And so I went to Melissa, and we talked so much that year about what to do with my life after Hamilton. So even if you have the realizations late, it's okay. I was able to do a business program over my junior summer, and being in that atmosphere, I realized that's the type of work environment I wanted. And I obtained a few mentors at that business program as well, who put me in contact with attorneys and told me about how they thought law could be a good fit for me. And luckily, one of my family members is a paralegal, so she helped me find other people to talk to as well. And that's how I came to the decision that I wanted to go to law school. But it was very late in the game that I had this realization. So I'm very grateful to the Career Center and Melissa especially.
But I'll just jump in and say, Taryn, again, that was you. That was a moment where a lot of students who decide they're not going to go that route are going to still look for something similar. Applying to that business program was really bold. You did something that was completely different, and to see how your trajectory, that's exactly what we want to see.
I can talk a little bit about it next. My path's a little bit, well, straightforward. I came into college, I was like, I'm going to be a neuroscience major and I'm going to med school. And that's what I did. But, my initial plan was not to take a gap year. Now that changed a little bit because the pandemic hit mine and Taryn's freshman year at the end of the year, which kind of threw all that into whack. And so my MCAT ended up, because of that happening, then getting moved because I still wanted to go abroad. But the big thing there was talking with my career advisor, but also actually the president of the university, who is retiring at the end of this year. But I actually had a conversation with him one day in the dining hall, and he's like, take the gap year. Like, you're going to be burned out. You've done how many years of school in a row? Like, take the gap year, go enjoy life, get some experience, and then come back to school with some experience. And, then you can really focus on it after having a year to wait to kind of refresh. And I think that was my like, oh, maybe I'll take a gap year. And I talked it over with the pre-health advisor at the time, and my family, and just with everything going on, decided to take a gap year. And I'm happy. I work and then I come home and play with the dogs, who one of them featured up there briefly, or play video games, or do something with my family, whatever I want to do. So it's definitely been nice to have a little bit of a break.
I bet.
And for me, I guess the way I stumbled on that, I knew going into college that I wanted to do something in the finance world because I loved following the markets. I loved math, wanted to be somewhere close to numbers, like in a nice intersection of those two, areas. And then, but I didn't really know where in finance and what companies, whatnot. And then this whole realization almost happened spontaneously. One afternoon, I saw my roommate just putting a suit on and like for something. I asked him where you going? And he said, oh, there's this info session. It's like open for everyone. I'm gonna Deutsche Bank is coming to campus. Like I'm just gonna go and see what learn more about the team, what they do. It doesn't hurt. And I was like, well, let me tag along. And yeah, and that was the time when I actually got to this whole industry got put on my radar. Got to know the team, afterwards a little debrief, and then the following morning there were coffee chats. So, and like all the alumni were super approachable, and I got a chance to meet with them, ask questions. So yeah, and that kind of helped me shape what I wanted to do and narrow it down. And from there on, it was like with the help of Career Center or my teammates or upperclassmen, I was following the process and clear guidelines. So yeah, but the start was definitely just happened one random afternoon.
Amazing. And actually, Melissa, I'm going to kind of piggyback off that a little bit. And hearing Jafar talk about the way in which the college was connecting with different firms and connecting with different people. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that the college does in terms of that work with employers?
Absolutely. And Jafar, didn't know you as a student, but now I'm very proud of you too. So thank you for taking advantage of what the campus has to offer. And I always say to students, just show up, right? All you had to do was show up for that conversation. So we try to bring as many employers to students as possible. And we're going to do that, of course, in many different ways. So we have a pretty robust on-campus recruiting program. So like Jafar was saying, we bring employers to campus. They're not just coming to recruit for positions. They're coming to develop a relationship. So again, that's where we encourage students earlier in their career at Hamilton to have conversation, right? Go for a coffee chat. Talk to the employer about what they do. A lot of times there's an alumni connection, which is really nice because the alums are invested in Hamilton and know what Hamilton students bring to the table. And then we have just dozens of virtual programs that are going on every semester. We partner with the NESCAC schools. to bring bigger employers for bigger events. Those are done virtually, and we've had lots of Hamilton students showing up to those events as well. Then also, I think a lot of it comes from alumni connections. So we have programs where it's called the Connect Team, and it's a group of students who run these programs for us, and they're on different topics in every single industry. And what we often say to students is that's your opportunity to learn about a particular field, but there's 3 alums on that call. Stay on that call after, or if they come to campus, have a conversation with them. Chances are they know someone who knows someone that can lead to an opportunity.
Thanks, Melissa. And getting a couple of questions from the folks in the audience, and some of them are my favorite type of question, trying to understand a little bit more around motivation and what you like about the work that you're doing. And so for our alums, if you can maybe just reflect upon, whether you're getting out of bed at 6 or getting out of bed at 5. Now I feel like I have to volunteer. I generally get I'm I'm woken around 4:30 or 5 by my toddler saying milk and downstairs. Whatever time you get out of bed, I'm curious from our alums, what do you love about what you're currently doing? What's the thing that really kind of motivates you to keep going?
For me, I entered law school with like zero expectations of law. Like law school is a very unique grad school where you can do whatever you want before law school and then just like apply to law school and get in. You don't have to like have like a law degree or like anything related to it. I mean, heck, I was neuroscience and Japanese. That's nothing. Like those are 2 majors you would never associate with law. So I went in with zero expectations of like what to expect in law school. And I thought, will I like law? Because I hadn't had a law experience prior to this. And I ended up loving it. Like law is so much more dynamic than people advertise. Like lawyers get a bad rap. They're like, oh, lawyers, they're like scum of the earth type of vibes a lot. But actually there's so much that goes into becoming a lawyer and being able to articulate the law and trying to change the law and how it's implemented is such a fascinating process, and like learning in depth like how our judicial system was created is absolutely fascinating. I loved it and I still love it, and I'm so excited to learn more about law and like become a lawyer.
Awesome. Jafar, it looked like you were about to jump in.
Yeah. Well, for me, I guess the favorite part of the job is, sometimes it could be on the flip side, not so enjoying, like so enjoyable, but the fact that it's so dynamic and you don't really have, something monotonous. Every day is a new day. Every transaction is different. Like for like last week, like our team did a $13 billion acquisition, like advise on a $13 billion acquisition. And it's just fascinating to get a front row seat at these type of, I would say, industry shaping transactions. And you get to see from the inside like what's going on in the boardroom. So especially like for a graduate just coming out of school, I think it's a very invaluable experience to see how the business world operates and functions. And you do get to take on a lot of responsibility and ownership early on. This is my 3rd year. I get to like there's certain accounts where it's just me and managing director who's responsible for client relationships. And yeah, I get to pitch on ideas, get to run certain analyses, take ownership of things. So I really appreciate that type of work, and that feels very rewarding to me.
And Mason, go right ahead, and I've got a follow up for Jafar when the time comes.
So for me, I'm in healthcare, so there's definitely some dynamic part of it. But being inpatient and because of the population I work with, there's a little bit more consistency to it too. They've got, their workout programs. So, every day I get my list and we split it up among my coworkers and I go see somebody. But, and to some degree, yeah, all right, we're just helping you maintain your strength. and get you out of the room, get you doing something up in the gym. But a lot of it is just talking and either meeting their families or finding out more about them. But I will say, I think one of the most rewarding parts is when I get a patient who continues to improve, which isn't very often because we have physical therapy and occupational therapy that I work with closely too. But just 2 weeks ago, I helped a patient sit up for the first time in a year, like sit up under his own strength. And that's one of the most like rewarding things you can see is somebody who hasn't been able to move and do things, and he's sitting up and getting ready to be able to get himself into a wheelchair for the first time in a year. And I think that's really, really cool. And that's one of the most rewarding parts about it for me is helping these people who, for whatever reason, need my help being able to improve, and then getting to know who they are as people.
I mean, really, really cool. I mean, that's super cool, man. I mean, when you think about the impact that you're having on the lives of the people that you're working with, it's amazing. And the fact that you feel that way is probably what's going to make you an awesome physician. I've got a couple of follow-up questions actually. You sharing your stories or bringing some really great questions from the audience. And so I'm going to toss a couple of these questions your way. Jafar, one of the questions that we're getting from someone who is interested in maybe eventually thinking business, finance, wondering about whether you are thinking eventually of pursuing business school, getting an MBA, and why or why not?
Yes, it's a good question. And for me, yes, it's in the back of my mind. There's no immediate rush for me, but it's definitely something that enhances your network, boosts your resume, obviously. So that's like for those type of things, you just meet incredible people from different backgrounds trying to make a pivot, whatnot. So it's a very it's a very enjoyable experience. But I guess typically why people decide to do it is when they're having career switch. Let's say if you're a consultant, right, and after 2 or 3 years you decide that you want to go into the world of investing or investment banking. That's when typically you do an MBA, or if you're coming from a completely different background, not even business related. So that's what I've seen so far people do. But a lot of times in certain firms, there's an expectation that you get an MBA. This happens in private equity firms. These are basically your investors, where they have certain programs and structures where you go and work there for 2 and 3 years, and after that, there's an expectation that you go and you do your MBA. In certain places, they help fund it. In certain places, they don't. But there is this expectation, and like seeing also at the at the C-suite level, you do see a lot of executives having an MBA. But that said, that was more of a requisite, I would say, back in the day than it is now. Like, for example, Hamilton alumnus who runs global investment bank at Deutsche Bank, he went from Hamilton to Deutsche Bank and stayed here for over 20 years, and he's at the very top, and he didn't need an MBA. So it really depends where the value comes for you. But I would say the most common option if you're looking for a career switch.
Thank you. And I've got a question that, maybe Mason, maybe Melissa, got a lot of folks who are thinking about futures in medicine and thinking about, clinical type opportunities that may exist, and, how we connect folks in Hamilton to those opportunities, whether it's in our backyard or further afield.
I can give just a little bit of an overview. As I said previously, we're going to encourage students to do things, and it can be hard during the semester to get that experience. However, students do opportunities in the local community. There are quite a few students who actually serve as EMTs in the community, and we have a program on campus as well. And then sometimes students get a little bit of time to go in particular to Utica. And I think sort of what Mason's talking about, there's opportunities in the community to be doing some volunteering. And our pre-health advisor works with the students on, we want you to get basic level experience and we're going to help you with that. But then what will count when you're applying to medical school is a little bit different. But I think a lot of students are getting hours over the summer. That's when they can concentrate the most time. And as Mason is sharing as well, that's why sometimes we see that students who are going into medicine, dental, medical school, whatever it is, they take that year off because there's a certain number of hours you have to get. It can be really high and very specific. So that's why students sometimes take that gap year too, in addition to preparing for their applications.
Yeah, I can definitely expand upon that. For me, getting clinical experience while I was in college was really, really difficult, partially because of the pandemic. All the hospitals shut down. They weren't letting people come in and do internships or shadow. But even once restrictions started to lift, you have to have time. Shadowing's unpaid. It's an excellent resource. I did some of it actually with the athletic trainers at Hamilton just to kind of get that I was at a couple basketball games, so I guess courtside view of what happens. I don't know why that zoomed out. Please don't zoom out and show the mess my dog is making on my bed. And so that was really cool. I actually wasn't on campus EMT because mainly COVID. And so one of the things when I was doing my application to med school was, yep, all right, you hit, I had all the hard things. I had grades, MCAT, all that, the volunteer work on campus and all that sort of stuff. But the big thing I was missing was my clinical. And I realized how important that getting some degree of clinical hours is. They don't care if you're volunteering at a local hospital or a scribe or doing what I do as a nursing assistant. But when I did my interview for med school, multiple of the questions were about the work I'm doing now and why healthcare and the exposure to the healthcare setting. And I think being able to, talk and say, hey, I have this person that I've worked with, and I'm really enjoying this. And working in healthcare really made a difference in my interview and getting an acceptance into med school. And so the Hamilton curriculum, they'll prepare you for your MCAT. And I have friends in med school right now who are like, man, biochemistry at Hamilton, way harder than anything we're doing now. So that's kind of good to know because biochemistry is hard. But then there's that other side too that only really clinical experience can get you. And the pre-health advisor is amazing. She will help you get opportunities. Your career center will help you get opportunities. And honestly, what I did during the pandemic, but I reached out to my personal physician. I was like, hey, could I come in and do some shadowing or hospital need, or do you want to scribe for a little bit? And this was immediately before COVID. She's like, yeah, sure, come on in. And then it went to COVID. But a lot of your personal physicians are super willing to help and talk with you too. And that's just a really good resource with somebody that you already know and have that relationship with.
Like that resourcefulness. You referenced, Mason, a little bit about the pre-health advising, and I've got a couple of questions. Melissa, maybe this would be good for you. Thinking, we've talked about pre-health and pre-professional advisor. We talked about career advisors. What's the difference, and how do all these different people, help out?
Sure. So in the Career Center, you have a dedicated career advisor who's a generalist. And so we know a lot about almost every industry. But when you, Courtney Hance, I think Mason mentioned, she oversees our pre-health advising, and she's going to really get into the nitty-gritty specifics with you. So she will talk with you about what classes you need to take and when you need to take them. A lot of support when you're actually going through thinking about applying for medical school. And then we partner with her on what opportunities are available. So she's cultivating and has partnerships with employers, and then we do as well. So she's right down the hallway from me. I see her every day and talk to her almost every day. And so we might be having a conversation with a student about looking for a scribe position, but then they really want to get into what are the specifics? What do I really need to be doing as I'm thinking about medical school? And then Courtney's going to be the person to do that with.
I've got another question that had come up a little earlier, and Taryn, you mentioned that you were a Questbridge Scholar at Hamilton, and one of the questions is thinking about different networks and different resources that are available and different opportunities that are available for students at Hamilton. So, thinking about the different networks that you were plugged into, maybe you could speak a little bit more about how people support one another in addition to the resources that we're talking about in the career development office.
Yeah. Mason can maybe speak more about like what it's like to be Questbridge in particular, but because Hamilton is such a small community, it's wonderful. It's one of the reasons I chose Hamilton. All of the clubs are also very small. This can include Questbridge, although it's growing, so that may be a bit of an understatement now. But all of these groups and clubs, you just become such good friends, and they just become like a natural support network. And you don't just have one support network. You can have like your like main friend group who you like hang out with all of the time. But like I also had my STEM friend group who would help me through like all of my STEM classes, because most my closer friends were all like the traditional liberal arts route, doing like creative writing and stuff like that. So they didn't really understand the STEM grind that it can be sometimes. So having multiple small communities that just constantly uplift you is amazing. Like they got me through like very tough times during my academic career. Mason can talk more about like what it's like being a leader in that position, because he's the president of Questbridge, and like what it's like organizing those groups and what he's seen as well.
Yeah, Mason.
Yeah. So I actually stepped into a leadership role with Questbridge my freshman year. I was a class rep and then ended up becoming vice president a couple months in. And then being president over the course of the first year of COVID. And then I was president of a couple other clubs, and I was very involved on campus, and it was great. I will say sometimes I stretched myself a little too thin, because at one point in time I was president or vice president of like 4 or 5 different clubs. So sometimes you stretch yourself a little too thin. But the beauty is Hamilton gives you the opportunity to do that. So I think, being like Taryn said, one beautiful thing about Hamilton is that it is so small. And I'm sure Jafar can attest to this too. You kind of know everybody. And one thing is like you're walking down Martin's Way, the main walkway on your way, from one end of the campus to the other for a class, and you pass somebody and you went, oh, I only passed them like a minute later on my walk. I'm running late to class. You have no clue who this person is. You know them by sight only, but you always wave or nod to each other because you see them every day, and you know where you're supposed to be on your walk, which I think is just something that's I think it's very nice, and it shows how much of they love to use the word hamily. And I think it is very fitting. It's kind of cheesy, but it is very fitting. And you can form those different friend groups. I had my STEM friends and my, like core group of friends who I lived with, and all these, and the ultimate frisbee team. And then I had the group of Questbridge people that I hung out with at all of our Questbridge events. And being an on-campus leader, highly recommend, if you are like really into a club or organization, doing it. Some of them are really small. I know some clubs are 10, 15 people. Questbridge now, I don't know the numbers anymore. I used to get them every year. But it's over 100 students. It's one of the largest student organizations on campus now. And you will inevitably, your roommate or your next door neighbor or 3 kids in your class now will be Questbridge. And I think it's a really good way to just find and meet people who maybe are from, it's very different yet very similar circumstance to you, because you're all Questbridge for a reason. And then you go on and you find out that you really want to be part of Plant Club. And Plant Club is another one of our like really big clubs, because they're just like, you get free plants like 20 times a year, and it's great. And then if you're me, you accidentally kill them, or you have to give them away so they don't die. But if you really like a club, go, work your way up in the leadership of it. Obviously, don't come in and be like, but meet the people. And that, I think, is one way that really helped prepare me too, is, knowing how to, when you need to, step up and say, all right, this is what needs to be done. And it teaches you how to delegate and how to manage your time and all of these really important things. But it teaches you, like I mentioned earlier, communication. And Jafar mentioned writing intensives earlier. Communication with writing, joining clubs and organizations is going to help teach you that through speaking, which is really important.
You're kind of foreshadowing the next question, and thinking about the decision that our guests, our admitted students are thinking through right now, and reflecting upon what your experience has been, and this is for everyone. I'm curious, what advice would you give to our admitted students right now as they're thinking about this choice, as they're thinking about their future and beyond at Hamilton? What advice would you provide?
I can take that first. So, I mean, I think it was said, directly and indirectly already, but definitely try as many different things as Hamilton has to offer, be it with classes or clubs. That definitely, you only have 4 years and then you out in the world, but those 4 years definitely do take advantage of everything that Hamilton has to offer. I mean, just look also at the facilities that they have. For example, I didn't know, the climbing wall, for example. I've always wanted to do that. Now in the city, I have to pay like crazy amount of money to do that. In the Hamilton, you could just go with your friends and go climbing, do something for a new hobby. Hamilton has also just recently they closed this massive campaign where parts of the uses are digitization. So I know now there's certain labs where you can practice digital design and whatnot. So like that sounds cool to me now. Like I wish I'd done that. Yeah, and definitely also take advantage of the alumni network. Once you've discovered an interest and you want to take it outside of the school past graduation and you're very passionate about it, you have the incredible network where you can connect and pursue all of that and have people to help you through that process. Definitely do not discard that. Don't go in the dark over there. You have the whole community basically to support you. So I would say those pieces of advice.
Thank you. Taryn?
Yes. I guess my advice is more towards like how to make your decision of whether or not Hamilton is the right place for you. For me, how I decided what type of college I wanted to go to and what atmosphere I wanted, I really pulled on my high school experience. So my high school is also relatively small. It's actually about the same size as Hamilton is now. But one of the key things that I really loved about my high school was I created really strong bonds with some of my high school teachers that I still keep to this day. And that was something I really wanted in college as well. I wanted a smaller class size. I wanted those bonds with professors, and I still update them. I recently sent my Japanese professor an update saying like, hey, I got a job in Tokyo. And it's just really special, those types of connections. So I think my recommendation would be to pull off of your high school experience. What did you like about your high school experience? What did you not like? What would you want to replicate in your college environment? And then once you get to college, just enjoy yourself. College is a very unique societal experience. You're never going to have a small community like college ever again. Like being even in grad school and like a slightly bigger college is way different than being in the community that is Hamilton. So I would say once you decide on a college, enjoy it to the best extent you can and just live life and do your best.
Taryn?
Yeah, this is always a fun one for me because my senior thesis was like partially on the whole thing of like risk and reward and deciding. But I think both Jafar and Taryn have really just done a great job of taking advantage of the opportunities, and when deciding where you're going to go, obviously the financial aid, whether it's at Hamilton or another institution, has to be there and has to be right for you. And you know, Hamilton is, I was very lucky. I got a very generous financial aid, and that was the final decision for me. But the main thing was my visit. And if you haven't gotten a chance to visit yet, I highly recommend it if you can. Obviously, if you can't do things like this, um, I'm sure, I know there's an admitted students Facebook page. I'm sure they've kept that tradition up. And normally, I know for our year, it turned into a group me, and then there was like 500 of us talking in a group me, and that was a really cool way to get to meet some of my classmates before I ever stepped on campus. But doing things like that and thinking about, how you want, and if you want a big, school with 10,000 students because, you know, for whatever reason, that's amazing. And if you want a small environment, then Hamilton is absolutely going to give you that small environment. I don't think there's really anything about the school that screams big. I mean, the opportunities, they pay me to say that. I think they should. But you do get a lot of opportunities from Hamilton you wouldn't get from other small schools. But whatever your reasons are, just go through and think about the different opportunities and the interactions you had with people from the different institutions you're considering. And I think that'll really help make the decision. And then once wherever you're at, just like Jafar said, do what you want to do, take advantage of it. A bunch of things in college that would not be free in the real world are free, including visits to the health center. So or most of the time, or they're like super duper cheap. So take advantage of that too.
Melissa, any advice for our admitted students?
I think that all of our young alums have given such excellent advice, but I think what I would say is you're going to find the place that's right for you, and you'll know it when it happens for you. And then just get ready for a really exciting time to be finishing your high school experience and entering into what Taryn, I think, said is unlike anything that you will experience ever again in your life. So please enjoy the ride, and just know that once you make your decision, just keep that in your heart and know that you did the right thing for yourself.
I love it. And I'll echo everything that my Hamily members have said. Thinking about the experience and what it may be for you, wherever it may be. We know that you've got great things ahead of you, wherever that may be, and we hope that it's with us here at Hamilton. We admitted you for a reason, and it's because we believe in you and think your future's bright, and we hope that your future is here with us on the Hill. Our time, unfortunately, is up, but we hope that this is the beginning of a longer-term relationship with you and with Hamilton and the Hamily, as we say. I want to thank you, our guests, for joining. I want to thank our panelists for joining as well. I hope we've given you a sense of how you can make Hamilton your own, and we're so excited to see what you make of it here. And hope that we'll see you at some of our future events. As Mason said, there's no better way than to see it in person. So please join us at our Celebrate Thyself events. We've got one on Monday the 15th, one on Monday the 22nd, and we'll be happy to have you at any point when you can visit us. So congratulations, thanks again, and we hope to see you in the future. Take care, y'all. Bye.